Hey all, here at osandbtxreviews.com. You're watching a comparison slash price fight between two phablet devices that have originated out of China, and the one on the left here is actually the Xiaomi Redmi Note, which is a 5.5-inch phablet device, and the one on the right is actually called the Android Note, which is a pretty generic product that kind of emulates on the Samsung Galaxy Note device, the Note 2 perhaps in terms of design. It has a 5.3-inch multi-touch enabled display. The price tag for both devices are about the same, and they retail for about $150 or so. The Xiaomi Note, being a little bit more nascent in terms of release, is going to cost a little bit more online, but again, price point is about the same. And give and take, again, the Xiaomi has a little bit of a larger display, but the display size and overall dimensions of both products are again about the same. So you will be kind of expecting the phablets to kind of come at the same size and weight and feel in the hand. Both products are made entirely out of plastic, so it doesn't have the best construction quality, but then again, most phablet devices are going to be plastic just to keep the weight down, because these devices are already huge and they have metal components that are going to get super heavy very quick. The back of the devices also shares a lot of similarities, from the glossy finish to the camera lens on the top. The Android Note does have a stylus port, as you can see here on the left, but again, it's a little bit like the Galaxy Note in that sense, where it can kind of take notes with the built-in stylus, albeit it's not a very good one. You do have one, whereas the Xiaomi version does not. Again, you see how on the right hand side we all have the power on and off switch, and then the volume rocker is on the left hand side for the Android Note, but the Xiaomi has it all on the right. And essentially, again, they are pretty similar. Some key differentiations between the hardware here is on the bottom here. You can see how on the Xiaomi we have capacitive controls, which is a little bit more sleeker, more of a kind of stock Android-like experience, but on the Android Note, it's more like on Samsung's variant, where we have a physical home control and then two touch-sensitive keys on the sides. So it's a little bit more minimalistic, but it's not as sleek looking in terms of design. However, the biggest differentiating factor obviously comes from performance. Whereas the Android Note on the left only has a dual-core processor, it only actually has 512 megabytes of RAM, and it's a pretty meddling experience, to be honest. Unless you're not expecting or demanding too much of your smartphone, things will kind of get sluggish pretty quickly, even though at first they might be pretty fast and responsive, compared to the Xiaomi Redmi, which actually has a octa-core processor clocked at 1.7 gigahertz, 2 gigabytes of RAM, and again, a 13 megapixel camera compared to a 3 megapixel camera. So the difference is rather large in terms of the other hardware internal specs and the things that you really can't see. Both devices do have GPS, both devices do have Wi-Fi, have Bluetooth, do have a dual SIM card feature, so you can put in two SIMs all at once. As far as battery life is concerned, both are actually pretty pretty good. You have a Xiaomi with about a 3,200 milliamp hour battery that lasts about 3 days in our test before we had to recharge it, and the Android Note has about a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, so it's not bad at all. Again, the main differentiating here is going to be that spec. So in terms of performing in terms of games and playing really intensive GPU heavy content, then the Xiaomi is going to kind of beat the Android Note kind of out of the water here. So whereas this device will kind of sluggishly perform along and it might stop occasionally, but the Xiaomi will actually kind of go on without any sluggishness at all. Otherwise, a main differentiating feature is also the main user interfaces. As you can see here on the Xiaomi, we have something called the MIUI, which is pretty intuitive, and it's kind of a mixture, like I said, between iOS and Android, with easy-to-use icons for people who like simplicity, and also limitless amounts of customization for those who appeal and are more advanced users of Android. So it's a lot more customizable, has a lot more thought going into it, whereas the Android Note kind of runs on a stock version of Android. Both devices run on Android 4.2.2 Jelly Bean, so they are pretty much the same in terms of department of having Google Now services. We have Google Maps, Google Gmail services, and as such, so pretty similar. Another factor that differentiates the two is kind of the screen quality. The resolution on the Xiaomi is a 720p HD display, whereas on this one it's just a WVGA resolution. And you can really tell, not just by the pixel density, but by the color saturation, whereas the Xiaomi is bright, vibrant, and viewing angles are extraordinarily good, even under direct sunlight. On the Android Note, they are lackluster, and under extreme angles we lose a lot of clarity, and also the screen is generally blacker and dimmer than what you might expect and want to call a quality display. One thing that the Android Note does kind of beat the Xiaomi, though, is kind of in Wi-Fi reception. We found that on the same region, you can see how the Wi-Fi really fluctuates on the top of this product. On the Xiaomi, kind of goes back and forth between full bars and then no bars, and it's not super stable. But on the Android Note, it's always full bars, more or less. And we found that kind of in the same area, if we were competing the two kind of web browsing and downloading applications, the Android Note for some reason would sometimes download the applications a little bit faster from the Google Play Store. So we can only say that kind of the probably the Wi-Fi unit on the Android Note has to be a little bit stronger in terms of that department. If we take a brief look at the web browsing experience on both devices, we can see that loading speeds are also quite different. Keyboard's about the same due to the fact that screen sizes are the same, but the touchscreen responsiveness is a lot better on the Xiaomi compared to the Android Note, which is a lot less responsive, and you have more typing errors. But both devices do not come with swipe as native browsers. So if you want to go to the New York Times, and let's just I'm going to go to Google first and then go from the link from there. You can see it loads up pretty quickly there. Again, it's a little bit more sluggish in terms of the keyboard. You can see how everything takes a second to load there, but not bad at all. It just takes a little bit longer. If we wanted to load a New York Times, this one is actually mobile. This one's mobile as well. 1, 2, 3. We can take a look at how that performs. Now, obviously, the two kind of are different in terms of, again, not just specs, but also in internals in some departments, because the Xiaomi, again, is more nascent in release, so it has a lot more updates to it, and it has more optimization for some of these applications, whereas the Android Note came out actually a while before, so it's a little bit more antiquated in that sense. There are a few more ads also playing on here that have just loaded on here, so they kind of go back and forth. If we wanted to see the desktop versions on both devices, we can click on it and see it. And surprisingly, both devices are kind of about breaking even right now, which even though web browsing might seem like that, just because the Wi-Fi signal is a little bit stronger on the Note, like I said, in reality, in terms of performing in everyday life, if you start playing applications and games, it is going to be the Xiaomi that's going to outperform the Android Note. Right now it might seem fast because we just kind of cleared the RAM and all the memory and stuff, but once you start downloading apps, the limited amount of memory on here, 512 megabytes, is really low. It's going to get kind of stuck pretty quickly. But again, when it's still, kind of refreshed and new out of the box, you can see how both devices perform pretty admirably in both cases, and you can see you can zoom in and out pretty easily on both devices. And again, the accelerometer, as you can expect, is nice and responsive. The Xiaomi is a little bit more responsive in this case, but both devices work pretty well in that instance. So web browsing, pretty good on both devices, but again, in terms of video content and video watching, your better bet is going to be the Xiaomi just because of the better screen, which is pretty apparent in mostly everything that you do. Otherwise, both devices do have the ability to create these folders that you can put in different applications, drag and drop, which is pretty similar. The Android Note has a traditional app drawer, like most Android phones these days, so it's a little bit more standard if you are used to Android, and also has a few more extras like flashlight that's already been built in, but everything else is pretty much rudimentary. On the Xiaomi, of course, you don't have any app drawers. You have to slide left and right for an unlimited amount of pages to add new applications, just like on iOS, but again, they're about the same. A few more extras on Xiaomi's UI because of the MIUI. You have like a Mi Marketplace, Mi Contacts, which are have a little bit more of animation to them, which slows down the user interface a little bit as opposed to a vanilla build of Android like on the Android Note. But both devices again perform fairly well. As far as downloading apps from the marketplace, again, both devices have kind of the same speed, I would say, because the Wi-Fi signal is strong on the Android Note. But in terms of actually performing the applications, the Xiaomi is going to be the faster phone to get. So in terms of call quality, lastly, both devices are about pretty break even. The Xiaomi offers a little bit better sound quality in terms of the microphone, but reception is about the same on both. So overall, again, surprisingly, the Android Note kind of holds up, but if you are looking for something to play games with and applications with, the Xiaomi is going to be better in terms of graphics and the benchmarks, and definitely the processor underneath the hood, and a better display overall to play around with. But the Android Note is not a bad phone at all for the same price tag, but kind of the same for the price tag that it's offered at. But when it goes head to head with the Xiaomi, which has the same price tag, you can see how the Xiaomi kind of outshines the latter over here. So overall, just a quick comparison out of these two, the Xiaomi I would say has the upper hand. Thanks for watching this video comparison / price fight between the Android Note versus the Xiaomi Redmi 5.5-inch phablet device here at osvtxreviews.com and OS Tech News.